Get out of the way, Timon and Pumbaa. There's another animal that is speeding past you both to box office gold. You heard that right. Sonic 3 featuring Sonic the Hedgehog is beating up, or not beating up, has made a lot more money than Mufasa at the box office.
Wow, he's shook. I saw a I saw a headline. Oh wait, maybe it was just my friend joking that Sonic mauled Mufasa.
Really? Yeah, I haven't seen. I was looking around at how everyone was, how like Deadline and Variety and all those,
Yeah,
entertainment.
hedgehog mauling Mufasa.
Yeah, I love that one. Yeah, it's so interesting, but yeah, people weren't expecting it. But Sonic 3 is racing, running circles around Mufasa, and he's kind of just standing there, getting dust blown in his face.
Sorry, Barry Jenkins.
Yeah, it's too bad. Who knows? I mean, Hollywood, I've said this all the time, but Hollywood is so unpredictable. Who would ever think that Sonic 3 featuring Dr. Robotnik and Shadow the Hedgehog and Knuckles, that would beat a legacy sequel to Lion King? You'd never imagine it in a million years. You couldn't write this shit.
I mean, I don't see any of those Disney reboots anyways, but it just sounds so boring.
Yeah.
Like at least Sonic is like goofy as hell.
Yeah, in my mind, both of them are bad.
Sure. But if you're like 7 years old, are you going to be like, Mufasa?
True. True. I didn't think about me as a 7-year-old. I'm probably wanting to see what the hell Jim Carrey's up to in that Robotnik suit, then wondering what Scar was like as a little kid.
Right.
I bet
He's
Scar.
well, I guess it predates, so there's no need for James Earl Jones yet at that point, right?
No, because I assume Mufasa is younger in this one. I have no clue.
I heard that James Earl Jones sold his voice likeness to a Romanian AI company.
I'm sure people don't like that, but it's good for James Earl Jones heads that they can now get his voice, and he got paid for it. His estate got paid for it, and now you can kind of chop him up and put him wherever you want, like with Darth Vader and stuff.
Yeah, it's a great omen of things to come for sure.
Definitely good. Well, speaking of Hollywood, I don't want to go like too much like, insider Hollywood stuff. So we have some Bravo news we wanted to talk about, right?
Yeah, there's some stuff.
Yeah. Well, first I'll tee up the horrible stuff. I want to get the horrible stuff out of the way. Can we?
Yeah.
Okay. You sent me, I think it was like a couple days ago. You go, oh my God. Well, you didn't say this, but you sent me the video, and it's Karen Huger's unfortunate body cam footage of her, the DUI footage associated with her arrest. Okay, you go ahead first.
No, it's hard to talk about because on one hand, parts of it are a little bit funny, but it's also not funny because, of course, it's very dangerous. It's very sad. She's obviously in a dark place. Someone could have been hurt, blah, blah, blah. But she says some wild shit on there.
Yeah, I found it to be that she was saying wild stuff. But overall, to me, it wasn't like funny, even when she was saying like I'm Thomas Jefferson's concubine and stuff. I just felt very much like, oh my God, it was so much worse than I thought, and it made me a little upset. I'll say a little upset at one of my favorite.
Yeah, like the way she's handling it in retrospect when she knows how bad it was is kind of insane.
Yeah, that's what made me bummed out. This isn't like I accidentally sipped a little bit of mouthwash as I was going out, and I hit a tree and they busted me. She was so drunk. I've never seen anyone that drunk in my life that wasn't about to pass out. I mean, she gets drunker as the video goes on. It's like she hadn't even fully gotten her full drunkenness by the time that she had crashed. She's drunker even in the what's the room where they take you?
Yeah, like interrogation.
Interrogation room. I was just like, I'm like, it made me a little upset, like you said, about how Karen is treating this, being like this is some conspiracy. Wait till you hear the true story. It's like, I just saw the true story. It's horrible. You were drunk as a skunk. You crashed your car. You could have killed yourself, which would be one of the worst things that's ever happened. And ever, or hurt someone else, obviously.
Yeah.
That goes without saying. And I really, I know that we like when Luann says stuff like, I'm going to say it. She goes like, I'm going to murder you. And she's like,
when she slips the cuffs.
We like belligerent drunks sometimes. But I found it all in pretty poor taste, to be honest. I didn't like the "Do you know who I am? Do you know who my husband is? You're poor. I'm rich."
Did shout out Andy Cohen, though.
Yeah. She goes, "I don't even know what the fuck Grand Dame means." But anyway, how are you? Are you married? I love
what
Ray.
If he was a Bravo stan.
Yeah,
he was like, "Oh my god, like Andy Cohen, hell yeah."
He goes, "Don't get me started on Andy. I love him, but he's not going to be happy about this."
Like, I'll let you off if I could be bartender.
Yes, I'll give one humorous moment for me. I couldn't turn off my humor brain when Ray said that I think she had a couple of beers, and the guy said, "What beers did you drink?" And you imagine her saying, "Michelob Ultra, 2 of them." She seems like, allegedly, I mean, whatever. I think she's found guilty, so I don't care. I don't even have to say allegedly. Like, it seems like she drank 20 vodka tonics and drove. It's like,
that's what I don't understand. I have to assume she knew that there was body cam footage.
At the time? I don't think so.
No, like, why did she plead not guilty?
I don't think that she knew. I don't think she knew to the full extent of how drunk she was.
Everyone should know that you're always, like, they had recordings of her from, like, 5 different angles. Like, they had it in the interrogation room. They had it at the cop car, cop himself.
Multiple reasons. Maybe she thought that she just will seem sleepy in the footage. It's very possible that she never thought the body cam footage would be released. Maybe that's something that you don't expect. I mean, I didn't expect that we would get to see 16.
Her lawyer?
Well, yeah. I don't know. I don't know any of that stuff. I just know it is very bad, and there is a time to valorize people. Like, I know we love Shannon Bedore after the last season, but it's still, we got to really, really also just isolate the moments when people really fuck up and think about it for at least a second and include it in the overall book on Karen Huger's life. Yeah. This was rough.
Do you think that this footage is worse or less bad than the footage that John Jansen is threatening?
I would say I would say Shannon's is worse because she did allegedly back out of her car and went within inches of running over John Jansen's daughter. I think if we saw that, our hair would blow back off of our heads. Karen Huger was lucky enough that there wasn't a kid or a person on the side of the road that she was about to hit with her vehicle. So I put Shannon's as worse. I can't imagine that Shannon was as drunk as Karen Huger, but maybe she was. It was 3 times the blood alcohol limit or whatever. But Karen was as drunk as I've ever seen a being that didn't just immediately pass out. Like,
yeah, her wig was like flying off. She was not even on this earth.
Yeah. So I think I wish that Karen, like I've said multiple times, I really wish that Karen used this opportunity to have more of the Shannon arc where she said, what I did was absolutely heinous behavior and I'm going to work my ass off to get better. And she had this sort of...
The crazy part is this all is coming out before the reunion.
Yeah.
So she's fucked in that sense.
Oh, I could not imagine if Giselle was still as mad at Karen as she has been like 3 seasons ago or whatever. I mean, oh my God. Well, I mean, Giselle already would take shots at her for this, but people will never give this up. Whenever you're mad at Karen, you'll just talk about this for forever. I saw some reports that they were like producers or Bravo executives are like thinking about firing Karen, but it's like, there's no way they're going to do that. They're just, now that the footage is out, Karen is going to have to completely change her tune and hopefully have a learning experience from this whole thing. So that was my takeaway. Do you feel any differently?
Yeah, I mean, it will be wild to continue to watch the season and watch her continue to be like, justice will be served, and you're like, excuse me?
You don't know the whole story. You don't know. And then it's like we see everything. We see her walking up the stairs. She goes, I'm lit. As she gets out of the cop car, I just like I think I know 95% of the story now, unless we don't know what she was talking about at dinner. Like she kind of tried to make it seem like her and Ray were having trouble, or what she talked about at dinner was really sensitive. But I'm sorry, but unfortunately, that does not take away from the fact that you were just drunk as hell driving.
And I felt really bad for Ray in the video.
Me
he's
too.
like wearing his little coat and his hat, and he's like, I think she should stop talking now because she's a little upset.
Yeah.
And he's like trying to rifle through her bag to like get her license and stuff. I'm like, that's such a shitty, sad position to be in, you know? Like, I felt really bad for him.
I was surprised he even admitted that she had 2 beers. And then at one point, if nobody's watched the footage, at one point you hear this like click or something, and the cop goes, your car is lighting on fire, so please step away from your car. It starts to burn. It's like not funny. It's like this footage is insane. It's insane. I cannot believe it.
I couldn't believe it when I watched it.
I haven't heard every reaction. I saw that Kay had a reaction, but I don't know if what she fully said because she was sort of on Karen's side. I need to hear all the reactions. That's probably what they're saving for the reunion. Just hear what Giselle and Mia have to say.
Yeah, if she wasn't driving, it maybe would have been iconic. Still sad, but iconic. Like Luann wasn't driving; she was on foot. She was like barefoot in a hotel. So everything she said, I mean, it was obviously dark stuff, but you know, she wasn't really endangering anyone. And same with like, I think of that legendary Reese Witherspoon drunk audio. She wasn't driving. I think maybe her husband got a DUI or like they got pulled over and she was wasted. And there's audio of her being like, she pulls do you know who I am? And she says, I am an American citizen on American soil.
Amazing. Oh, amazing.
And I'm like, I love shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, do you know who I am? It always is so wild to say. Man, it was these drunk driving arrests. We had Shannon this year, Karen this year, and Justin Timberlake.
Oh, wow.
The year of drinking and driving.
Did you see the video of him wearing the harness? And then he wore, his his PP was showing in the harness, the outline. And then the next concert he wore like a tunic so that it went to his like thigh length.
I saw it. Can I tell you behind the scenes truth is that I was going to start the episode out with that news update. I was going to say, well, it looks like Justin Timberlake is saying bye, bye, bye to short t-shirts after fans saw a bulge in his pants while he was performing. But I was like, I don't want to say bulge. It's Christmas Eve.
He really can't get a break.
Yeah, he's the the internet has turned on him. Yeah, you know what I mean?
He's lucky that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni have taken over the news cycle. We've moved on. But we don't have Justin? To get into that.
Yeah, let's not. I'll get mad, I think, too. Okay. Well, yeah, so okay, so I think we talked about Karen. I think we feel roughly... I do think that there is something... Like, it's interesting to hear what Karen Huger... what her fourth wall breaks in the moment. I will give some of those moments, but it's just overshadowed completely by just how horrible I feel about the whole thing. But I sort of agree with you. Then my next piece of Bravo news was we missed the cycle on this almost like by one day, which was that Lisa Vanderpump was on some podcast. I'm so sorry I don't know the name. I forget. Do you know what the podcast was? Housewives Unfiltered, I think.
Some shit. I don't know.
I'm sorry to not shout them out properly because they should get a big scoop from that. But they were, I heard it only secondhand out of context. It was Lisa Vanderpump questions the paternity of Kristen Doute's child. And I was pissed. Yeah. I was like, I'm upset with Lisa right now over how she cast the cast of Vanderpump Rules aside and rebooted the franchise and the way she's talking about them and the level of disrespect. So I was already primed to sort of be a little mad at Lisa Vanderpump. And I always have not liked her antagonism towards Kristen Doute. I'm so on the side of Kristen Doute for the most part in their feud. So I was like primed to hate this story. And then, but to do my due diligence, I listened to the audio. Did you listen to the actual audio of it? So it's completely out of context, and hearing it written, it sounds 10 times worse than what it was. It legitimately sounds, even though Lisa obviously likes to poke fun and, be silly and say kind of mean-spirited things sometimes as while she's joking, it almost truly was like, I don't keep up with Kristen's life at all, even though she's a producer of The Valley. She goes, who is the father of her child?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, I'm doubting that Luke Broderick
Right.
is the father of her child. It was legitimately, it sounds like a question. There's also a lot of crosstalk, so you can tell that they're all getting confused. It's kind of like structured badly. And then they go, it's Luke or whatever. And she goes, I'm not very involved in the Valley. And then everyone is kind of being like, well, Lisa, you're a executive producer on it. You must know who Luke is. But I legitimately don't think that she has very much to do with the Valley. Like, I don't know if she's watching the cuts. I think she just gets that credit because it's a spinoff of Vanderpump Rules. So then I was kind of just completely a 180 on my take. I was like, I don't think Lisa meant that. It just sounds so much worse out of context. And then even when Sheena gave her the Jax hole of the day on her podcast, I was just like, I think everyone kind of missed what the true intention of that Lisa statement was. So I'm here to kind of defend Lisa against that, which is not what I thought I was going to do.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I find it hard to believe that she doesn't keep up generally with the broad strokes of the show. Maybe she's not watching cuts or shit like that, but like I'm pretty sure that she's like on Instagram all the time. And like, I mean, it was big news when she got engaged and big news when she was pregnant. And that was like the same week that Vanderpump got canceled. So it was kind of all embroiled in the same thing. So I'm sure she was very online that week.
Yeah, I almost took it as more, if you are giving it like a Lisa joke, Lisa Barb, I thought that it was more of like, who is Kristen? I don't pay attention to her anymore, which is par for the course on how Lisa treats Kristen, but it was not, the intent was not to be like, I think Kristen sleeps around, which was really what I thought. I was like, that is so mean-spirited to pretend like maybe even
she was like, who's the daddy?
Yes, I thought that she was implying that Kristen cheats so much. That's totally how I took it, because Lisa is usually very mean about Kristen. So I thought that was in such ill taste, and it's really not the case after I listened to the audio. So I gotta give, I don't even want to do it, but I'm giving Lisa the turtle time. What should we call it when we exonerate someone completely from criminal court?
Mistrial.
Yeah, I declare a turtle time mistrial on the trial of Lisa Vanderpump in the media for the last 3 or 4 days. It's turtle time. In my opinion, Riley Hamilton exonerates Lisa.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's classic Watch What Happens Live 101. When you get a question about someone you don't like, you go, who?
Exactly. She thought she was on Watch What Happens Live, and Andy Cohen was going to give a repartee back, and it was going to keep going, but those hosts just kind of let it flop, and they didn't push back or anything, so it just sounds kind of really bad with no context. Totally. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, did you see Kristen reposted the headline with a clown emoji and it was like a Pitbull song or something called like stupid ass shit or something.
And a big
like
pile
that.
of shit, I think, with flies circling around it too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if Kristen listened to the actual audio. Well, I'm not saying that people didn't do their due diligence, but listen to the audio and let me know if you truly feel that Lisa was being that horrible. I don't think she was.
I feel like 9 times out of 10 that's the case. When you actually listen to a clip, you're like, oh, okay.
Are you proud of me for listening then?
Yes, good journalism.
Thank you.
Well, we skipped. I'm going to skip back to Potomac really quick. I saw a headline that said that, if you recall, a couple episodes ago, Mia accused Giselle's daughters of running out on the town and inviting boys over. Said they were up to no good, and now I'm seeing on Instagram that apparently it went much further and that Mia is awful and called those sweet, dear little twins whores. And that Giselle begged production to cut that part out because she didn't want that to air, which is like lucky for Mia. That she preferred to protect her daughters over throwing Mia under the bus. But I'm like, Jesus. Like, again, we talked about in that instance that even her just saying anything about the daughters and them being promiscuous or just bringing that up at all is so leaps and bounds beyond what people usually get pissed about when daughters are mentioned. Mm-hmm. And like, that was already bad. But then to hear it was this, I'm like, how did she even continue on after that?
Yeah, I completely agree. It makes you, it begs the question, what is on the Bravo cutting room floor?
I know.
I mean, Could you imagine if they released the vaults on all this stuff that they're apparently cutting? We heard about the Salt Lake City shit this season. I think it's awful. We already talked about how awful it already was, so this makes it much worse. I do have to ask, to be devil's advocate for a second. It sounds absolutely horrible. On printed, is it quite possible that there was some? I mean, not that there's any context that makes it okay, but would we, I don't know, think about it a little differently if we had actually seen the footage? Because it's kind of, I know people, we don't really truly love Mia for a lot of her actions, but I can't imagine almost that she would just say that about Giselle's daughters. Because I feel like, I don't know.
It's that she repeated the insult aimed at Bryant girls more than once as the cameras rolled. And then apparently both of them, Mia and Giselle, begged to edit it out.
Okay, well, I take it back. Mia, that's horrible. I wonder how Bravo, in these instances, when something that a cast member does to another cast member is so egregious that they have to cut it out, but that cast member still knows what happened and they absolutely hate them with all of their might. How do they explain now why Giselle will probably never talk to Mia again in her life, or hate her forever and not make it a part of the show? Like in all the Salt Lake City scenes, I'm watching Lisa interact with Mary, and I'm like, did Mary call Henry an R word to her face? Now, how are we supposed to know why Lisa will absolutely despise Mary for the rest of her life if we don't get to see it on camera?
Right.
They have to find another way to justify why they hate them.
Or knowing that happened, and then they just bit the bullet and move forward without stonewalling them anyway.
I guess that's what they have to do, because it just won't make sense for audience members to know why there's so much hatred, because we didn't get to see what happened behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, that's we've been talking about the James and Kristen of it all, and obviously it made sense for her to despise him no matter what. We knew enough for it to be acceptable for her to hate him, but now knowing that there was probably a lot more makes it sad to watch.
Yeah. So many people this year are going to have a horrible Christmas.
I know. Did you see, I don't know if this is even new, but I saw someone somewhere posting unseen or resurfaced footage of that James Alley fight at the Canyon Club or whatever.
I didn't see it.
It's nothing that I saw where he's touching her, but he's getting... It's him getting kicked out, and she's fired up too, but I think she's maybe defending him. And I'm it's so weird watching the show to imagine Allie being in a chaotic relationship, which again, it's you never know what happens behind closed doors, but she doesn't seem like someone that would want to participate in yelling all the time.
No, I'm ready to declare, because I don't really think I have anything to protect anymore. I fully am ready to declare that I think Allie, at least partially or mostly, was with James for fame. Mm-hmm. At this point. I mean, what she was tolerating from him is so awful, to say the least. And he was always horrible. Even in the better moments, he treated her like shit. She had to excuse so much. Allie doesn't seem like that type of person at all, that she would ever want anything to do with someone who behaves like this. And you bring up the Canyon Club moment. I'm like, how did we not learn more about that incident? It was basically an offhanded remark that one person said. It was never dissected any more than that. And it sounded insane.
Well, James getting crazy is in the video. You forget how kind of recent, because it feels so much has happened since, but Rachel is there.
Yeah, I know.
I forgot.
She tries to kiss Schwartz at the table or whatever. And remember, when we were recapping Vanderpump Rules on our wonderful Patreon, there was a scene in season 3 where James goes after the cat scratch incident where another hostess had sex with James. He was like, oh yeah, and then the cops were called, and they never talk about why the cops were called to the house. That's just secondary to James showing up with scratches all over him at Pride. Do you remember that? It's there are so many moments looking back that it's just what the hell were we all letting slip through the cracks?
For sure.
So
that
kind of ties in.
And then we saw somewhere that Sheena's friend, I forget what her name is, but remember I sent you, she posted on Instagram that she was finally James, the news about him is coming out. It was hard for me to be friends with everyone still when they just like let him stay in the group. And she said that she knows that a friend of Allie specifically introduced her to him for that specific reason, to meet him and to potentially be on the show or whatever, which I think always was something we talked about, because like she met him at a show the way like Rachel met him at a show.
I think we were being very nice and charitable to that relationship in a way. And I had a couple of my hairs were not hairs. Sure. A couple of my inner thoughts started to peak when Allie immediately went from a horoscope reader to being like, oh, did you know secretly I wanted to be Taylor Swift, and I've been writing songs all my life, and we're performing at dog shows. And I was like, oh, okay, you are just kind of like a lot of the people we're watching now, where you secretly wanted fame the whole time, and the minute you're on the show, you're making people go to acoustic shows for you to have.
Too bad they cut most of it. This obviously goes without saying that just even if she was dating for that reason, she shouldn't be subject to his nasty, vile behavior. But
I wasn't
that we've
even
always thought about.
It was, it's not even, it's that, it's like, no, the only reason I can even imagine that she put up with even 1/100th of what James does in any instance is because I think that there could have been some rationale behind her wanting to stay in this relationship. Absolutely. What James did is absolutely so awful, and I still cannot believe what the overall reaction to that is and what's going on there. It's like, I don't know, we're not even close to reckoning with that, in my opinion.
Totally. Yeah, it's dark stuff.
Yep.
Last thing I'll say is that I think we missed our chance to go to Schwartz and Sandy's.
I saw that when I heard end of the year. I don't know what the hell was wrong with me. I thought December 31st.
Yeah, same. Like, they didn't really make it clear at all.
No, it was December 21st. It's over. Schwartz was... you sent me, I didn't see the live or whatever, but he was like, I'm taking shots. It's the last night at Schwartz and Sandy's. Goodbye, everybody. Did you watch that at all?
I saw some stuff like reposted, but I was like, I thought for a microsecond about like dropping by, but I like really just didn't want to, and I couldn't do it.
It probably has a horrible vibe right now. This was a rough, as we close out the year, sort of a bad, not bad in terms of quality, but sort of a rough year for a lot of Bravo celebrities, I'd say, as we're ending 2024. We're not really ending on a high, wonderful, beautiful note of celebration.
Right. Yeah. Everything we just said just now was bad.
we just said a lot of bad stuff. Well, speaking of, no, it's not. This wasn't so bad, but this was not my favorite episode of Salt Lake City, I'll say. And Elise, were you ready to move on? Yeah,
it did have bad news in it. The episode, sad news.
Sad news. Are we speaking of the same thing?
Todd father.
The Todd father having a little bit of trouble where he was on his iPad.
iPad strikes again. I feel like everyone gets caught cheating from the iPad.
The wildest thing that Apple and Tim Cook ever did was link every device. He was like, I'm going to catch a lot of people cheating. I'm going to make everything that's on your phone be available on your laptop, on your iPad. It's probably caught so many people cheating. And also you have to assume that Todd, I don't know if this is too mean, but I'm not going to say it.
Why
I just
not?
think it was probably pretty easy for Gwen to see
you think it was on 120% text magnet.
No, I wasn't saying that, but I'm just, I'm imagining Todd with an iPad spinning it around in circles.
One word per line. It's so big.
I want to cheat on you pretty soon. Eyes emoji. You know what? Yeah, why am I defending Todd? I think that was awful of him. But you know why I didn't like this episode of Salt Lake City? I'm just going to say it up front. I am tired. I'm tired, deeply tired of Lisa being the scapegoat and the punching bag for this entire cast. This was the worst, most egregious example of Lisa Barlow. I can't really point to one bad thing she's done this season. It's almost, to me, entering Heather Dubrow last season of OC, or the season before last, except they handled it way worse. This is more justifiable because, I don't know, they have a little more to go for in terms of, talking shit about Lisa, but it's almost there. I'm almost fed up with it. I get why Lisa cries at the end of this episode. It's just like, what the hell is going on with you all? Like, you know what I mean? And sorry, and that's why I was just like, it's a little repetitious. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of how Bronwyn is treating Lisa also.
Yeah, it's strange. Do you think Lisa's just too powerful?
Yeah. It's a total takedown. Whitney started it. Whitney started it last season. She had no allies to take Lisa down. Now she got Angie on her side, kind of half and half. Angie's being pretty waffling back and forth. Bronwyn is immediately going towards that. And then Heather had the first opportunity, I feel like, to also throw Lisa under the bus a little bit. Even though I believe Heather more, that she just didn't like how Lisa behaved. It's just like everyone is just starting to go for that. And I don't really think it's justifiable, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first conversation about the Todd father happens with Angie, Whitney, and Heather at their water aerobics. By the pool, they talk about how like Bronwyn got so messed up by the dog bite, and that I guess her assistant joined her at the ER, but Todd was like, it's probably just a scratch. Like, I don't need to come. And then the assistant called him and was like, no, it's actually like really bad. Like, you should probably come. Which I'm like, if your wife goes to the ER for any reason, like, don't you think you should just go?
Totally. Yeah. Yep. It didn't make Todd look great. He thought just dog scratches, but it was so much worse than he thought. Gwen, I think, FaceTimed him and said, Todd, look at this shit. Right. It's absolutely horrible. And Heather is now, which I'm fine with this, but Heather has made it a part of her storyline this season, which I think it's much more justified. She's like, I think Todd is mean. And awful, and I've heard a lot of things that is providing examples of that, and you hear this and you're like, obviously I'm going to use this as evidence against Todd, so yeah, makes sense to me.
She has a very loaded point of view about those kinds of marriages. She's like, I was in a marriage like that with like no respect, but as long as he didn't do anything wrong, like cheating, I would stay. And she's like, I feel bad. Like maybe Bronwyn had more going on than we realized, which we will hear about on the boat.
Yep. And then one other through line before we get to the boat, which was the most, the biggest scene in this episode. We're hearing whispers that Brittany had a little glass up to the wall of Meredith's room, which was adjacent to hers. And she unfortunately heard Meredith crying and barfing all over the place. And Brittany does not know what to do with that information except tell every single person.
Yes.
That happened.
Which it's interesting because that is like, perfectly paired with us seeing Meredith falling asleep in the van on the way to the boat and then not being able to walk from the car to the boat. I mean, she is wearing like 8-inch heels for some reason. I don't know why you wear those to go on a boat. But she's having problems getting from point A to point B.
She seems really sick. And exhausted. No, that's not funny, but it's like, whoa, what are you going through? I'm going to say it now before we get sidetracked. What do you think Meredith was crying about?
I mean, what she says it's about is absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah.
So it can't be that.
Right.
I also don't know to what level of accusation we want to make about her state, but it's giving something.
It's given something. Well, we'll talk about it when it gets broached again by Brittany. But they go on a boat. They're having a little bit of fun. I'll just say personally, I'm a little tired of boats. I feel like you and I, with our recapping of Vanderpump Rules and all the stuff we've done, like boat, like I don't know. I've seen a lot of boats.
Boat this, boat that.
I must be in a bad mood, but I'm just like, okay, what's going to happen on a boat? They start doing a dance. Brittany absolutely does the coolest dance I've ever seen in my life.
She's like popping and locked in.
Awesome. Compared to everybody else's dance, Brittany's is so cool. It's actually a dance. And Bronwyn goes, Brittany, I love you, but no, don't ever do something like that again. And I was like, that is so mean. Brittany was killing it. And you watch Angie's dance, and no offense to them, but Brittany's was by far the coolest dance.
Heather did like a Irish jig, and then Angie did sort of like a Greek, like sort of, I don't know what you call that.
Of course, Greek. I kind of know what it was. Greek dance where her. Yeah, of course. I forget the name of it, but sort of a classic Greek dance. And then I just was like, Bronwyn. Bronwyn is very much like, I absolutely love her. I think she's the best cast member, but she's starting to let some of the deep true colors come out, and the way she's just being mean to Brittany, I was like, I don't like that at all. Like,
yeah,
you're just
too much.
Yeah.
So then they're all talking. Brittany brings up, because Lisa's talking about little Henry and how he's doing, and Brittany goes, wow, like, you guys are all very interested to hear what she has to say about her son, but when I brought up my daughter, I got freaking crickets.
Yeah, another what about me moment. And this one, me too. I absolutely love it. It comes out of nowhere. I thought she was like, you all are being unsupportive of Henry and his cologne collection. I thought she was going to add more to the Henry story, but no, she wanted much more from them about her daughter's story. And Bronwyn says something which I think is, true, why they didn't respond. She goes, I know Henry. I like Henry. We don't know your daughter at all. And then Bronwyn is still going in, and she goes,
yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no. She says, did you like the idea of telling us an announcement, or do you actually like the idea of seeing your daughter? And I was just like, oh my God, what an act is this? Yep. And then Brittany says, fine retort back. She goes, you are a fucking bitch. And then I'm like, what is Bronwyn doing? Bronwyn goes, are you going to say anything, Lisa? And I was like, what does Lisa have to do with this?
I know. I'd be like, excuse me? She goes, we've been friends 10 years and you've let this woman call me a gold digger, a bitch, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you just said something heinous to her too. Like, fight your own battles. Like, why do I have to defend you like you're a baby?
That's exactly my response. And she did this a little bit last week and was a little more excusable. But at this point, I'm like, you are very fixated on Lisa. Lisa brought you into this group and she knows you well, but she's not going to have your back for absolutely everything you do during the season.
She keeps saying, she said it again on the after show too. She keeps saying, Lisa, you brought me into this group. You want me to hang out with this group and you're not supporting me. And I'm like, you're a cast member now. You're on your own.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like that's exactly the approach that Lisa has. I brought you into this group. I like you a lot. We're going to have scenes together, but I'm not going to help you with your relationships of any of the other cast members. And you're already she's doing a lot of damage on her own. The Whitney and Angie stuff, she messed up those relationships. So I've never seen a cast member like this be brought onto the show and then blame the person so much for the experience they're having. And you could say Bronwyn is having a great experience on the show. She's doing really well. I don't understand where this insecurity is coming from. I think she's so enjoyable to watch and one of the best casting decisions they've ever made. So I cannot wait for the era where she feels less insecure, because this insecurity stuff, I just cannot get behind. I don't understand it at all. And especially Lisa being the scapegoat for that insecurity.
Right. Yeah. And then she almost kind of pulls a Brittany and goes, no one's asked me questions about my life. She's like, you don't know how hard it is to be a stepmom, the real shit I've been through with Todd, being with someone older and successful, and the infidelity we've had in our situation.
And everybody goes, oh my God, you just said something that we have to talk about, which is that Todd might have been cheating on Bronwyn. She says that Gwen saw the text, like we mentioned, and then Bronwyn brought it up, and he said, I'm a business guy. In business, how you like to do deals, and you have big deals, and you want the next big deal.
The art of the deal.
You're negotiating and someone says $100 and you say $125. It's that business stuff. Well, I have that in terms of wanting to cheat on my wife with other women. I want
I'm never satisfied.
I'm never satisfied. It's like,
that's how Alexander Hamilton was too.
Really? Alexander Hamilton? My forebear?
He was always like, all right, treasury, but also women.
Oh, really? Did you learn that from the musical Hamilton?
Totally. Apparently, Martha Washington named her feral tomcat Alexander Hamilton.
Oh my God. I had no idea about this side of Alexander Hamilton. I'm going to watch that musical immediately. No wonder Aaron Burr decided to blow his, I'm not going to say that.
It was very Housewives, actually. There was something called the Reynolds pamphlet, which was basically like a Bravo TV blog that was like Alexander Hamilton is getting up to nefarious shit, and someone just like spread him around New York City, and then he like couldn't reach his ambitions that he wanted because he got canceled, kind of.
Wow. Could you imagine being someone that was never satisfied with what you have?
Not me. I'm satisfied with almost nothing.
I am very satisfied with what little I have. Okay. I heard. I didn't watch. Unfortunately, I didn't watch What Happens Live, but I heard that Bronwyn expressed regret for saying this, and she said that Todd, father, only was doing texting, according to her. He only was saying, "I wish I could cheat. I want to cheat so bad. I hope I could cheat someday in the future," but. He didn't actually physically cheat. That's what
I can't
Bronwyn
imagine how scary he was when he found out she did this.
Oh my! Could you? I'm picturing his face red and steam blowing out of his ears.
Yeah, it's like terrifying. To the point where you do wonder like why she did it. Like,
why she said it?
Yeah. Like, if you could say she was just being vulnerable to the group, which maybe, but it feels like chess beyond that to me, because it's so, I mean, she's a smart person who obviously reveres her relationship and knows his vibe, and she has to know that there's going to be like repercussions within her relationship for saying that.
Yeah, I just really thought that she was ready to talk about it at that time. Like, she wanted to be very open. Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a true moment in a way, because in the fact that she regrets it, I'm almost like, oh, you didn't want to bring it up. Like, you let that slip because Brittany was saying, like, I don't know, having a vulnerable moment. And she was this whole boat ride. Like, I loved her monologue about her insecurity and everything. So I felt like she wanted to say something true about her relationship with Todd. At least that's how I felt.
Sure. No, it felt real. I'm just like surprised. Like, I wonder if there were any conversations where she was like, this might come up or something, or if it was just I would be scared for her is all I'm saying.
Yeah, totally. I'd be like, fuck off. Like, fuck off, Todd.
Well, that's what Heather was saying. She was like, fuck him. Like, this is always how those relationships go. Like, and then Lisa's like, and Meredith are like, well, what about Todd? Like, maybe you're not doing your part in the relationship to make him feel comfortable, which is weird.
It made no sense. It really made no sense. Meredith, I think Meredith was just trying to say stuff, or I don't know what she was thinking. She's like, "Are you so guarded?" Or, I mean, I guess that is the least defensible of Lisa and Meredith. I'm like, why are you even for 1 second giving a rationale for what Todd did?
Especially like as an immediate response. Like, maybe if you were having like an in-depth conversation later and getting into like every aspect of it, you could talk about the dynamics and stuff, but she's literally in tears having just told you this and saying that she doesn't feel good enough in her relationship, that she basically works her ass off to make him happy, and that's how she feels in the group. But she does say he gave her a diamond ring with 5 diamonds with 5 promises for what new things he's gonna honor in the relationship or something like that.
No more cheating. iPad restriction from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., the horny hours.
No more Starbucks mugs.
No more Starbucks mugs, because he just completed his collection with that Times Square one, and then they didn't say what the other 2 were. But good, I guess. I think that Bronwyn was saying that Todd never said that cheating wasn't going to be a part of his life anymore. I think that the power dynamic is so shifted in Todd's favor in this relationship that he thinks that he can get away with anything. But what I love about Bravo is that Bravo is sort of the great equalizer of all people, and it doesn't matter at all what Todd may be like in the business world. Like, he's a Hewlett Packard executive or whatever the fuck he does. We don't give a shit. We're like, you're Todd, you're Bronwyn's husband, and you're treating her like absolute shit. I do not give a shit about anything else about Todd except how he treats Bronwyn and how he appears on camera. You know what I mean?
Totally. I watched the after show, and she was saying like, well, she felt that it partially also helped nix the whole gold digger conversation, because she was like, I would have a perfect excuse to divorce him and take his money if I wanted to, but I love him so much that I stayed anyway, even without the prenup.
Yeah.
And also Heather was kind of being shady in the after show. Like, she kind of flip-flops. Like, on the boat, she's so like staunchly supportive of like Bronwyn's rights and like that Todd sucks and that like husbands suck and whatever. But she was saying on the after show, she then took Todd's side and was like, I'm just glad I'm not married, because if I was married to her and she said all that stuff on camera, I'd be pissed.
Oh, I do not understand that angle on this.
I know,
I mean, like,
weird.
it is so it is so above board to bring up infidelity on this show. So I don't understand the take. I can only guess that Heather does not like Bronwyn at all at this point. I remember there was a Watch What Happens Live where Heather was on it, still talking shit about Bronwyn, and she's like, "Wait till you see the rest of the season." So maybe Heather is just not in a good place with Bronwyn still. But before I knew that, I thought Heather's speech was actually beautiful and iconic. I won't get into everything, but she kind of like goes into the mentality of how Bronwyn has felt as a single mom, how much she had to be a survivor and develop that toughness, and that now it's time that you can actually let your guard down and expect more from people, and it doesn't matter that Todd took care of you or whatever. It was like this very much empowering speech, and I thought Heather delivered it beautifully overall.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah.
And then, Meredith starts talking. She's essentially slurring her words for whatever reason. And she's trying to open up about her marital issues, and then like kind of judging,
she said Todd maybe just doesn't have the capacity to love you the way that you need to be loved or something. It's like, she just told you that he was possibly cheating with someone. I was like, what part of the conversation did they edit out? So Meredith, I was like, Heather gave a 10 out of 10 speech. Meredith was like a 4 out of 10. Angie's was like a 2 out of 10. I was like, Angie, I love you, but you don't have to talk at this moment. It was like, Sean is a perfectionist.
I know.
He's so perfect, and you know how stressful that is. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And then Brittany afterwards is saying that she feels closer with Bronwyn after that. And then she's like, Meredith, how are you feeling? And she was like, I just think it's exhaustion.
All right, so I didn't notice Meredith being a little green in the gills during this whole day. Like, but you're right. I didn't take into account that she has to be helped up that curb. I was like, even in heels, I've never worn them, maybe once. Even in heels, you don't need that much. Well, I don't know, but like, it was only one curb. I was like, did she need help? Was that just because she's so sick that she needed that help? Or possibly
she didn't say she was sick,
So you think she's having a sort of a lost weekend, drunk as hell?
I don't know. There could be more to it. It's giving lewds.
Meredith, Marks, were you on lewds during this Puerto Vallarta vacation? Puerto Vallarta, let us know. Then Lisa goes, wow. Wow, that is so sad. I feel like some stuff got edited out of this because I don't understand. Lisa goes, wow, I know you so much better now. And I was like, wait, don't you know Bronwyn? And then she goes, well, you're vulnerable. She hugs her. Brittany goes, can I hug you? I feel like there was Brittany stuff that was taken out of the Bronwyn conversation because I was like, how did you guys get resolved? Like, Brittany now wants to hug you, but whatever. Bronwyn basically just had an iconic moment, a vulnerable moment, and everybody wants to rally around her. Then they get back from the boat, and it continues a little bit.
Yes. And then, so Bronwyn still doesn't feel like Lisa supported her in that moment, or at least was just doing the bare minimum. And she was saying how it felt like Meredith and Lisa were defending Todd. Whitney says she takes sort of a bold angle and says, well, that's because both of those women have been accused of infidelity. And Heather agrees. And it's like, they've been on the other side of it. So they're relating more to Todd.
I will give Whitney a huge 10 points on the scoreboard overall of Salt Lake City. She's in the full-blown negatives, one of the worst performances of all time, but I will give 10 points because that is the only theory from what I saw that kind of explains why Meredith and Lisa are taking that stance, because they've both been accused of cheating. Yeah,
Lisa says on the way back to the van after the boat that she's like, Todd's going to lose his mind when he sees this.
Yeah, that was a great Lisa. Oh my God. I don't think you've ever done that before. That was amazing. And then Brittany keeps going, Meredith, are you okay? But she won't specifically say what she heard. I was like, ask her. This would be iconic whenever you ask her. But she doesn't do it. So yeah, Bronwyn is then getting kind of fueled by Angie and Whitney and even Heather. They all are just saying Lisa's not a good listener, the infidelity stuff. Heather concurs with Whitney about this. It's like gathering. And then I think Bronwyn is like, are you saying, Angie, that Lisa might not believe me that the infidelity happened? And I was like, I'm not sure exactly how that take started to form, but that's what Bronwyn took from what Angie was saying. Angie is, like you kind of said, or I don't know if you already said this, but Angie is definitely like, I'm not 100% sure what's going on with her relationship with Lisa, because as of 2 episodes ago, they had that heartfelt aquarium meetup where they were like, we are best friends again. I love you. I'm so sorry for this. And now Angie is starting to take sides against Lisa a lot of the time again. So I'm not understanding what's going on there.
Right. We get a check-in with Mary. She helps get her son to rehab. She found a place out of state. They have like a cute moment where they pound fists, and he says that he can feel his trajectory going up and up. On the after show, she said he went for 30 days and that she wanted him to go for longer, but she said he's doing well, but he is still hanging out with some of the same people that he was hanging out with before, which worries her. Also, it might turn out that he's not legally married. She cannot find, apparently maybe they didn't file the paperwork the way Schwartz and Katie didn't. So it might just not be, locked in. But she said that he can't get his marriage certificate because it's locked in a safe that he cannot open.
His marriage certificate that he wants to file so bad to be married is locked away from him and he doesn't have the code.
Yeah. She's like, we need to hire someone to open it. But apparently he's now, as of the after show, going to Vegas with Robert Sr. to their house there to like sort of just have a different locale.
Good.
Which I'm like, why is it Vegas?
Oh, yeah. That's a bummer that's where their house happens to be.
That's where you go to try out.
Yes. I did like when she was like, Robert Jr. wanted to go. Like, this would all be so different if we were forcing him and like he didn't want to get help, but Robert Jr. actually wants to get better. And I thought that was an interesting distinction and like so insightful for Mary to include. Like Robert Jr. wants to go and get help. So I thought that was really nice. Then she's back in the world. Oh, and I love I love the Angie moment where she got there. And she goes, Angie is just like a pure positive light in my life. I love her. They hug. And then she goes, we don't even need to speak. We just like know that we're on the same page. And I was like, wow, this friendship started from when Angie said you have lipstick on your teeth at the reunion. Do you remember?
I know. I was like, I keep forgetting that they really get along that well. Like they hug for a minute.
Yeah.
So then they go, their dinner event is Vita sponsored, I guess. And it's like a whole dinner. And Mary, I'm kind of skipping ahead, but Mary is served last, which is like, I feel like there's always an issue for her. And she says, they're like, what did you order? And she goes, pastrami soup. And everyone's like, huh? And apparently she meant minestrone.
Oh, right. But everybody has a few minutes where they think about that, where they go, I've never heard of pastrami soup in my life.
I'm also like, I mean, I guess it was just an Italian place because they had caprese and minestrone soup. And I'm like, why are y'all eating that in Mexico?
Right. I didn't understand it at all. Yep. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a wait for the caprese and the minestrone. Then Brittany finally decides to say, it's been the 6th time that she's asked Meredith how she's doing today. Yeah. She goes, Meredith, how are you doing? I hope it's okay to say this, but I heard you crying last night. And then Meredith goes, you were crying?
Meredith goes, I'm fine now, but thanks for asking.
Yes. And then Bronwyn decides to stir up a big pile of shit. She goes, Bronwyn goes, well, I just have to say that it's wormed its way all the way over to me. And I heard that you were crying and throwing up and that I should be really concerned about you. It's like, wow, what an interesting way to put that to make Meredith really mad at Brittany.
Yeah. Meredith is like, well, yeah, I was upset about the slut shaming and I cried. And Whitney says, I didn't know that Meredith was the advocate for all of the sluts of America. Like, I didn't know she took it to heart that much that she was crying like a week later still.
She's like, I can't believe what Angie said about high body count hair to
Crying
Brittany.
so much it sounds like she's throwing up, like heaving. She also said on the after show that Brittany asked her first thing in the morning she said, I heard you throwing up. Are you okay? And that she told her first thing in the morning that I was not throwing up. I was crying.
Oh, okay. So it's pretty positive that she wasn't throwing up, it seems.
According to her.
And then there's a funny game of telephone where it gets bigger and bigger throughout the rooms. Did you see that part? It was like Meredith cried and threw up, and then someone was like, Angie was like, yeah, I heard that Meredith was crying and blowing chunks all over her apartment. It started to get like worse and worse as they were telling it.
Yeah. And then I don't even know. I keep like, even when I'm taking notes, sometimes I just end up putting Angie versus Lisa. Cause I'm like, I don't even remember exactly how that got started.
It's, okay. So Bronwyn again gets mad at Lisa, because she feels the same way that Bronwyn feels the same. I don't know. Basically, Whitney, I think, says something about how it's so interesting that we're supposed to care about your feelings, but you don't care about our feelings. And Lisa says, nobody gives a fuck about my feelings, obviously. And then it's a little bit like Angie wants to take a shot, because obviously they're kind of all alluding to the same thing, which is like Lisa gives them nothing but asks for full loyalty. Mm-hmm. So everyone kind of takes turns going around. Lisa is so much more mad at Whitney than she is everybody else. So she goes, I don't really care about you at all. You're a lying bitch, she says to Whitney. Then Bronwyn and Angie express how they feel. And then Meredith comes to Lisa's defense, because Lisa was basically just like, if I remember correctly, Lisa was saying that, hey, Meredith, if you were really crying about the slut-shaming content or comment, get it out right now with Angie and like nip that in the bud. And then Angie goes, I thought we weren't going to pry into Meredith's life. And then Meredith has to explain why Lisa is saying that. And then Angie and Lisa now start to fight, because Lisa's like, why are you taking a side against me again after all we've been through? And then at that point, after all three of them have basically had words and accused Lisa of whatever they are accusing her of, not being a good friend, basically, she just starts to cry. And I feel like Lisa really did, for the most part, besides maybe possibly putting Bronwyn in the wrong room, she really was trying to have a good, high-spirited, fun, Vita-centric trip for everyone. And at a certain point, I was just like, wow, like no one gives a shit about this Lisa trip. They're just accusing her of the worst shit. And she just breaks down. She's like, I can't take this anymore.
She's crying at the table and in her confessional. So she's still upset. Then, she says, I'm going home. And then Mary is like, what happened to the dessert?
Yeah, and then it kind of a little bit of a silly note. But I felt like Lisa after this. I was just like, I'm gonna cry at how mean everybody is being to Lisa. You'd have to write the list of the 10 horrible things that Lisa did this season to remind me of why there is so much hatred for her this season. I really don't understand the Bronwyn stuff. Barely do I understand the Angie stuff. The only true hatred I understand is Lisa's hatred for Whitney at this point, because of the Alibaba shit and how Whitney treated her last season. So I hope that some resolution is coming, because the conflict meter is getting to the point where I need it to get tamped back down again for some fun.
Yeah. It looks like we'll have a new victim next week. Whoever is the source of that recording conversation, maybe it's Brittany. I
think it's Whitney. Okay.
Oh shit. Okay.
You might be right, but I looked at the footage. So apparently someone is recording in the Sprinter van. I don't put it past Whitney. But the way that Angie is directly behind Whitney, and Angie's looking just completely forward, and then the way Meredith is looking, she's behind Angie, and she's looking completely forward, leaning over her chair. Bronwyn is like to the left, I think, and Brittany is to the right. So the way that their eyes are pointed looks like it's directly at Whitney. And I don't doubt that Whitney would be selling stories or recording them for some ulterior motive. So that's my theory.
something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Could I request, before we go to Charleston, a rare certified turtle piss break?
Rare for this new iteration of Turtle Time. Absolutely, you can piss your brains out.
Thanks. I had a giant coffee. So.
Okay, so let's take a break, and I will see you in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail.
A pig's tail.
All right.
Okay.
And we are back. I hope you liked that advertisement that you just listened to.
Yeah, hopefully it was something good. But yeah, Southern Charm, we were talking about it. It was okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer for me because two things I'm going to say up front. I feel the same way that I just felt about Lisa Barlow. I feel that way about JT. I am really bummed out so far. JT, I don't know what the hell he's done since whatever time period this was. If he's done something horrible, then shut me up, shut my mouth. But as of now, I feel like JT is getting a really horrible, awful edit or treatment from the cast members. He's not getting that bad of an edit. He's just being mistreated by the cast, and I can't believe it. And I don't like how long they're getting away with this. So that's my takeaway. And then in addition to that, I find the disparity between who are the powerful, wonderful cast members that we love to watch, the difference between what Shep, Austin, Craig, and Madison bring in comparison to what Taylor, Rodrigo, Leva, Vanita, and everyone else bring. There is a wide gap there in terms of compelling entertainment, and that's a problem that Southern Charm needs to fix pretty soon. I hope maybe Molly. There's potential for Molly. They would have had it with Olivia potentially, but there is a divide. When they go to these parties that the friend ofs are at, it is like watching the, what's the big thing that happens in deserts when a ball of tumbleweed. I was like, oh my God, Craig needs to be here. I mean, most of everyone was there, but that is just, there's some problem with casting. I don't know what it is on Southern Charm, but the minute that someone gets really powerful, and then JT is a good example. JT is becoming more powerful on this show, but they're treating him like absolute shit, and he left the show, so now they have another problem. So that's what I felt as I was watching this. Those are my high level takes, but let's get into it.
Yeah. So it starts out with JT writing an apology letter to Miss Patricia, and it's kind of a funny, fumbling, his writing is bad. He doesn't know how to say it. He's like, my intent was meant as a sign of inclusion and solidarity, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I felt for him so much though. Like I write Christmas cards sometimes, and I just completely forget how to write or make sense in that context. You know what I mean? Yeah. Scratching stuff out. I thought overall the letter was a great idea. And he said that he believes his mom, or always takes his mom's advice, which I love the dynamic between him and his mom. And I think writing a letter was the right thing to do, even though maybe the language is a little sloppy. I think this was a great way to talk about his disrespectful act of handing her the cane for the most part. Even though it's given the silly sort of oh my gosh, how do I write a letter?
Yeah. She is not as what's the word?
Receiving?
Yeah. I thought she would be all right, fine, who cares? Which she does say that letter writing is a lost art, and so it was a nice gesture, but ultimately she's he's like an annoying gnat.
Yeah, I was pretty bummed out by Patricia's response to that letter. Well, so in Patricia's defense, she thinks that JT called her a bitch. Right. So when he's writing a letter that is only talking about the cane incident, I imagine that she still has ill will towards him with that rumor brewing.
Whitney, by the end of at least by his confessional, says it was giving producer vibes. He was like, I don't usually see Whitney or JT as someone who would use the word bitch or call a woman a bitch. And he's like, and we know that Craig is a known liar. So actually, I'm kind of thinking twice about that whole thing, which I was like, that's kind of interesting that he's like, I'll take it with a grain of salt. Yeah.
And Leva later is questioning, I cannot imagine JT saying something like that. It's interesting that Craig's lie, normally I feel like this being out in the world, everyone would just believe it no matter what. But the fact that Craig's reputation is a little bit of a liar, like everyone is sort of questioning. Like they know JT enough at this point to think that he would never do something like that.
Yeah. I did like, she also introduced me to a new turn of phrase, and excuse my French, entente cordial.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, apparently it's a reference to like the Revolutionary War or something, like something that actually happened.
Cordial, but not a close interaction.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how the French started treating the British after a couple scuffles back and forth.
You're right.
They were like, can we have am I really?
An entente cordiale was a series of agreements signed on April 8th, 1904 between France and the United Kingdom that improved relations between the two countries.
Wow, it was bad until 1904? Whew! The French and the British, they absolutely hated each other, and they were living right next door to each other. I think Whitney studied at, like, La Sorbonne.
Cool. La
He kn-
Cordon Bleu.
he knows French like the back of his hand. He even corrects Patricia because she goes, I know you don't like it when I speak French.
Well, I can't wait for Sienna to get invited to Miss Pat's for one of these dinners, and then everybody can speak French.
Could you imagine? They could have a full French language scene, possibly.
Is there, I was questioning my own ignorance. Is there a French tie to the Bahamas or strictly British? I get confused on island colonialization.
Right. I bet a couple of French people peeked their heads in over there to see what was going on with that British. I'm not sure.
That's the thing with Southern Charm. You end up in these like weird territories of mystery.
Yeah. I just want to say though about the JT thing, because I'm going to say it again, but like there was good intention here. At this point, JT does not know that there's even a rumor that he called Patricia a bitch.
Right.
So in a normal show where people didn't absolutely despise JT for whatever reason, you've said this before, Patricia would brush this aside and be like, that was the perfect like apology to me. I love this. But for some reason, JT is not treated like other people, and that really happens in a bizarre way with Madison later in the episode, which I won't step on.
Yeah. We can breeze through. Austin and Shep get together and talk about Craig a lot. Also, for some reason, Austin asked the waitress her name, and her name is Madison, which gives us a perfect opportunity for them to roll that beautiful bean footage of the secret threesome video, which I'll never get tired of.
Yes. And yep, I love it. Shep has to explain why Austin had that reaction in case she wasn't a Southern Charm fan. Shep says, oh, he has a relationship with someone named Madison at some point.
Yeah, she was like, oh, sorry.
And then they're oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, they agree that because they're happy with their new girlfriends, they agree that hooking up left and right with these new conquests really leaves you feeling empty inside. So they're over it.
I like that. Austin goes, especially when you've had sex with a different person for 6 nights in a row, you really feel empty after that experience. And then Shep is kind of having an ayahuasca flashback or tinge of, he goes, we never used to talk like this. We never used to talk about the emptiness and shallowness of random hookups. Let's do that more. And then they're like, well, speaking of vapid and not vulnerable, Craig is really pulling a number on everyone with this sewing down south persona. He doesn't even think he can have a beer on camera, and his empire will collapse if he does.
Yeah. Then they're like, Shep goes, remember when he was on Adderall to the gills, just lying about every single thing? They also say that he never confides in them about Paige, and that Shep says that he's like Howard Hughes because he never goes out.
Oh, he said Howard Hughes. I don't know what I was doing. My ears were closed at that point. I can't believe they got the Howard Hughes comparison. I have to talk about, the Craig lying stuff because everyone knows Craig is a liar. I've never heard a cast, about Jax. Jax gets the same treatment, like Jax is a liar. Craig is called a liar or stretching the truth by everyone in the universe of Southern Charm. Craig kind of had a Jax moment on Watch What Happens Live. I saw where he goes, I've never lied once in my life. Did you see that Watch What Happens Live?
Was it like this season?
He said, he just said
like
this.
Last night
like with SE Cup or something. He goes, I've never lied on Southern Charm. And I'm like,
roll the footage.
I know, and they
have
do.
like 400 clips.
And then they show, right after this scene, they show Craig going, I'm one of the biggest liars you've ever seen in your life. Pinocchio has absolutely nothing on me.
Therapy.
Yeah, and they play this crazy crashing piano music. Did you hear that part? He goes, I'm a liar! And they have this like piano music. I was like, when did this piano crashing enter into the sound mix? But anyway, I was just like, that's a huge discrepancy. If you see yourself as never being a liar, but everyone around you has accused you of lying and thinks you're a liar, Craig, you got to think about that, you know?
That's such a like crazy quality to have. Like, I don't understand why the masses, I mean, I know you love Craig and I like him fine, but that no one cares to think about the biggest red flag of all time, that someone's a liar.
Yeah. I think I can tolerate liars in my life.
Okay.
Liars.
That scares me. That's
lying.
Like psycho shit.
Yeah, lying is so wild.
Outside of like childhood, it's like very weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think about lying anymore. Well, we won't get into it, but yeah, it's not good.
Liar.
I think Craig is oh boy, I know some tall tale liars in my life. I think that Craig is probably using what Jax when Jax had that era where he was like, I've never lied once in my life. I think he means that he was sort of telling the truth about stuff. But anyway, I think Craig has probably some rationale for why he's saying he's not. But obviously, if everyone around you says you are, then he needs to take that into account. Sure. So then, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, then we get a scene which I think illustrates that we're in trouble cast-wise. This is so mean, and I barely want to say it, but it's just the Doggy Parton party just has a little bit of flop energy in terms of I'm not going to be too mean, but I just noticed that it was a little bit of a drag. And and it's like and you just feel the difference. You feel the difference when you're in a scene with Craig, Paige, and Madison when they're over at the pool or whatever, and what these new cast members are bringing to the table. So it's a little boring. It's a little too long. They don't know. We said this at the Carolina Cup when they were on the Sprinter bus together. They just weren't capable of making compelling television. And so that's hard to watch after a while. So this had a little bit of that, even though Austin and Shep and everybody get there. The main draw of this is that almost every new cast member is in this scene. So Sienna is introduced. Shep is like, I love Sienna. She's like a bright light, for me. Taylor has to meet Sienna. Sally is now introduced as Molly's friend, and we find out that Sally made love to Shep at one point, and she was one of the first people in Charleston history to kick Shep to the curb after they made love. Is that what Sally said?
I think so. I think she was like, I wasn't trying to tell people about it. Like I wasn't she's like, it wasn't bad, but I wasn't like shouting it from the rooftops.
Yeah, she was like, you're not my type of guy. And then it turns out that Sally used to date Gaston for 3 months, but he was cheating on her a lot. And I kind of have to say that about that piece. 3 months is not a long time at all to even consider something a relationship. And I kind of have to question, like, were you a boyfriend and girlfriend officially? I mean, 3 months is sort of when you meet someone that maybe that's the time where you're still seeing other people. So I think that they maybe wanted Sally to have another kind of big rift in this group to bring up. That was my thought on the Gaston part. It
sounds like also that they're both in medical sales, so I wonder if that's how they met.
Yeah, Sally teaches surgeons to use this certain like robot for surgery, like like the technical aspect of that robot. Yeah,
I think that's like a popular like secondary job. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, when I watched that Dallas Cowboys cheerleader documentary, some of them on the side did medical sales too.
That is so
like
cool.
I think it's like an easy, like part-time, not easy, but part-time.
Yeah. Thing. Yeah, easy as hell probably.
Yeah. We should do that. Did you enjoy the Craig, Paige, Madison scene?
Well, if we're talking about it, I got a huge what's a synonym for a red flag? Like my what do you say? I had
Spidey senses.
yeah, I wish there was another way even to say Spidey sense, but I was concerned about something I watched there, where it was when Madison told Paige that Brett had cancer, and Craig was like, "Oh yeah, I knew that." Paige, you didn't know that? And Paige was like, "No, I never heard that." I was like, "Oh, that really shows how like not friends Madison and Paige are." And the fact that Craig learned that information and didn't tell Paige that Madison's husband was diagnosed with cancer. I was like, how did that information not get disseminated within your group? It was kind of a little bit like, oh wow, we're a little bit teeing up this friendship too much, because that's a huge thing to not tell your significant other.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like everyone's so like in the bag for that whole situation, like when they showed up in the same outfit, and everyone's like, he calls Paige chicken. Like, I'm just like, can everyone like relax? Like, I don't need to be so like stand-up about like Paige being like a celebrity visiting Charleston or whatever. I'm like, it's fine. Like, that scene was fine. It wasn't like the greatest shit I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I didn't. We weren't even like. We didn't even. I wouldn't have even like. We didn't even need to talk about it because it was not that entertaining. I only thought it was interesting to see that Paige didn't know this, but Craig knew this about Brett.
Yeah,
I was like,
that was
what?
interesting. I like when he was sort of like interjecting, was like, no, like, you knew that. Like, he's
yeah,
like,
and Paige was like, no, I didn't know that. And Paige's reaction was a little weird because she was just told that someone she's supposed to know's husband had cancer. That was like a weird thing to keep in the edit. But then, so at the dog party, what notable happens there? Oh, one thing is that Rodrigo did not invite JT. And I was like, friend of should not have the power to not invite someone who's a full-time cast member. I was like, Rodrigo, he did nothing to you. And if anything, it would have made the doggy party better to have JT there and have the Madison confrontation happen at the party. So that was a huge a blunder in terms of entertainment for Rodrigo to try to ice out JT. And then JT is just alone. You know, like no one wants to film with JT. And JT... all he did was give a cane to Patricia. Well, and I guess sorry. And then he also was spreading the rumor that maybe Madison wanted to, was cheating.
Rodrigo said that JT would come with an unwanted level of bombast.
Yeah, too much bombast at this subdued, not very fun party. We wouldn't want that, would we?
I did notice that he did buy the Dolly Parton party napkins and like plates and supplies from Walmart, which I did myself as well.
That's really awesome. I love that. Molly comes up with a cake and she goes, it has a Dolly Parton quote on it. And I thought, what was the quote? And it was, "I will always love you." From that song. That's one of her songs, right?
It is.
So, and then Taylor is this is kind of funny of Taylor. Taylor, I think we've talked about this. Yeah. She's, great that she's on this show, but she's like accusing everyone of being like awkward around her. She's like, Shep is being so awkward by not inviting Sienna to meet me. And I was just thinking the whole time, I was like, Taylor, you're the only one who's awkward. You're very awkward at this party. Everything you're doing... Everything you're doing is exuding awkwardness. Shep was not that awkward. Sienna was not that awkward.
Sienna didn't give a shit about anything. She was like, I'm literally not threatened by you for one single second, like at all.
Not at all.
We also, so Molly brings her friend Sally, who apparently they both worked at Republic, which I was like, oh, that's interesting, I guess. And she, Molly tells, this is before the party, but she tells Sally that Whitney called her fat. And then we see a clip where Shep brought up at the Easter lunch that he knows Sally and calls her Mustang Sally. So that's where we get the background. On
what is that? What is that a reference to?
That's a song, right?
Mustang Sally. Like, I mean, if that's a song, I've never heard it once in my life. Mustang Sally. Is that? I'm thinking of never. I can't sing it because we'll get demonetized. But if anyone knows what Mustang Sally means,
I think it's like it goes way back, that song.
Oh, okay. And then the party. I don't know. I mean, I really have nothing else to say. It's kind of just like flopping around.
I did love that Austin brought Chauncey.
Yeah, That was sweet. And then Austin made an Instagram post where he said, I wanted to take Chauncey so bad, and I knew that Chauncey's was having a rough time, and Chauncey has since passed. Like, he passed, I guess, in the interim or whatever. So I did think that was really sweet that Austin brought Chauncey.
Plus points for him.
Yeah.
We also, Leva was there, and this is what she was saying while at the party, that she questions JT, and I'm if JT would say something like that, and I'm just like, girl, like, she just like sucks the life out of me. I'm just like, why are you here?
Yes, I agree. I don't, Leva is on the show to make the bridge between Southern hospitality, like, happen and be more legitimate. But I don't think that Leva really contributes anything to Southern charm in a way. The only thing I'll give Leva credit for was that I agreed with the sentiment that Rodrigo should have invited JT. She goes, if we're excluding people for their past wrongdoings, then no one would be invited anywhere. I think that was to let everyone know that who the hell is Rodrigo to exclude JT from a party, to ice out a cast member. I felt that exact same sentiment. But now let's move on to the final scene, which I find extremely bewildering and almost edited in a way where I'm like, you're not properly conveying what you think you're conveying with this scene. This JT villain edit or whatever is not working, and Madison kind of gets lost in this scene where she doesn't know what the hell to do. So she calls him, JT, she goes, meet me at the coffee shop. And it's like, huh? The coffee shop?
One.
You know which one? Madison is ready to, she knows, she's like, I'm Madison. I am going to annihilate this person. I have all the ammunition in the world. I am going to go for it with my full being. And she warns everyone. She's like, you came to my house. Like, so Madison knows that she is teed up to have an iconic dismantling of JT. And so she starts to do it, and she brings up the accusation that JT insinuated that Brett thought that she was having an affair with JT. What I thought was interesting about this is that Madison admits that Brett actually did this and called JT. That is huge. And I feel like once the can of worms is opened on that, it completely deflates Madison's antagonistic stance towards JT. You admit Brett was jealous.
Yeah. Well, I always thus far believed it, because I'm like, that's too specific of like, I don't think he's making up that the call happened at all. Like, I always like believed it, and I think that's why she's so bent out of shape about this, because she's like embarrassed that he did that.
Yeah, it's almost like JT revealed something embarrassing, and she's more mad at the embarrassing FaceTime that she has to talk about now more than she is that JT insinuated that they had an affair. And what we find out that is very true, that makes this locked in stone as a true fact, or set in stone as a true fact, is that actually Brett didn't know what the hell Madison was doing. She's on a cast trip with her ex boyfriend, and and he thinks that she might have hooked up with Austin, which makes it so much more believable that he was jealous and that he actually did this. JT just got it turned around, thinking that he was implying that JT and Madison had sex, which is
just the person to confirm that she wasn't, in her words, eating McDonald's and drinking red wine in bed with Austin.
Right. Exactly. And Madison tries to say, like, he's not a jealous person, but that's why he did it. It's like, okay, you're admitting. And JT is right to bring this up and feel a way about it. I felt awkward. I felt awkward having a FaceTime phone call with your husband where he's insinuating that maybe you might have cheated with another cast member. So it just deflates Madison's argument completely. And then he goes, and then this season, I thought we were friends, and you started treating me like shit. At the Carolina Cup, you didn't say whether or not you wished that I wouldn't have died or not. So he's saying that he got sort of mean girl tactics on him after that conversation that Brett had with him. Like, he's being treated badly for Brett's actions.
Yes. Also, up top of the conversation, she goes, this was in the preview, she goes, are you fucking blind? Have you seen my husband? Do you really think for 1 second I would have an affair with you?
Mean.
Which I'm like, savage.
It's so mean. And like, normally if Madison is at the right target, I want her to be mean. 10 out of 10. I'm so fine with it. But I feel so bad for JT. I was like, now because he said this, you're calling him ugly, like that you would never stoop down to cheat on him. She calls him a little troll. was like, damn. I was like, I do not feel any of this sentiment towards JT. By the end of this conversation, then she knows that she's flopping because she admitted to the Brett call. And then she goes, and by the way, you call Patricia a bitch and you're the bitch. And JT goes, what? And I was like, oh, that's a legitimate what? Like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he says, which I loved this, that he brought this context up. He says, I don't think I would ever say that, but people always have to question if they would ever say something. And he goes, I would never say that because I learned the hard way. I called my mom a bitch after she wouldn't give me a Slurpee from 7-Eleven when I was 8 years old. And I would never call someone a bitch again after that, the lesson I learned from my mom. And I was like, damn, specific example.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I believe it because like the one thing that he ever does is act like he's a gentleman. So I think he's smarter than to say something like that. Also, we don't have the footage, so it's not true.
Yeah, right. And I have to say it again, that if Bravo had this footage, well, this, I'm like, wait, would they? But no, this is so in the realm of what Southern Charm is about that it makes total sense that they would play the footage. They can't find it. It didn't happen.
That would be, it's one thing for them to leave something out of the edit, but I would be shocked and saddened if they ever did a footage not found when they did in fact have the footage. That would be a bridge too far.
They didn't. And and he goes, that was the last time I used that word. And then JT, he doesn't let that linger. He just goes, I want to say that I'm sorry for what I said to the boys. I should have come to you first and not told them. What can I do because I really want to move forward? And then Madison, this makes absolutely no sense. It's like she knows that she completely lost and that maybe the Patricia bitchgate didn't happen, and also she just got outed for that FaceTime call being real. She goes, you're unbelievable. I believe what Austin said about you. You are the farthest thing from a gentleman, and I don't even want to speak to you again. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I know. I was like, okay. And in her confessional, she says that she'll be mad at him until she dies.
Really? I think because something lame about Brett got exposed, and she didn't like that at all. I'm like, Madison, people are having a lot worse exposed on these shows. I'm sorry that you had a bad moment, but JT cannot be your scapegoat for this. It's a weird thing that Brett did. I'm sorry he was jealous, but he did call JT. JT brought it up, and Bitchgate doesn't exist, so you can't use that against JT as well. So that's why I was kind of like, at the end of this episode, it's like, damn, like, I don't know what happened to JT, but it's quite possible now that he did not like the way everyone on the cast was treating him and believing a lie about him when it's something that he would never do. He thought that the narrative was being written for him as a bad person, and he wanted to be off the show.
Yeah, I did see somewhere, I don't remember if we talked about this, but one of the Bravo accounts posted that he did resume confessionals.
I said that. I was like quoting that to people in my real life. I was like, I think JT resumed filming. And then I was like, did I dream that? Because I tried to look it up. Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I heard it from you because I couldn't. Then when I searched JT Thomas resumes filming, I couldn't find one article about it.
It was like, it's so hard in the like screenshot culture because I just see everything on like Queens of Bravo or like Bravo Holic, whatever. So it's like you'll never find it again unless you like sent it to someone, But I definitely saw something. If that's true, I don't know, but I saw it.
Well, that would be amazing. I mean, I hope so. I hope that he sees how this season is actually going with Leva questioning Bitchgate and Whitney defending him. And I do feel like he could have vindication at the end of this season. He just probably quit halfway through when he saw how the narrative was starting to be formed, but he didn't know the full story. So I hope JT doesn't let them all run him off the show like this.
Yeah, it's hard. He doesn't have allies, and no one really likes him anyway. So he doesn't have much of a comeback like to grab onto.
I find JT extremely compelling. I really do. I find it when he's ordering tea and walking up with a cane to Madison after he wrote a letter to Patricia, everything about him. I know he's like lame or whatever. People call him lame, but I would take 20 hours of watching what JT is doing versus a lot of the other friend ofs. No offense to them. So it's a detriment to the quality of the show to lose JT.
They should have had Lisa go to the doggy party. Lisa Vanderpump.
Oh, could you imagine? The episode would just be us talking about that for the entire time. She was at the doggy party. Oh my God.
I did like the one points up for Rodrigo is that him and his partner adopt elderly dogs, which I love.
Okay. I give them that too. That's amazing. I'm very proud of them for that. Wow, 30. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, it's sounding like there is going to be Southern Charm early in the new year. So, keep in touch with us on social media. We'll let you know what our holiday schedule is going to be. We're working it out, but we will try and stay as current as possible. But yeah, it looked like, I'm trying to remember what the coming attractions had coming up, but I feel like there was some good stuff in there.
Yeah, Southern Charm. What was one scene that looked good?
I don't know how quickly the trip will be. Do you think we'll ever get Shep going to the Bahamas, or do you think that's like a separate situation?
I think Shep will get a chance to go to the Bahamas. You mean on camera?
Yeah.
I think
like, I can see my little kids running around and just living in the Bahamas forever. And I'm like, that would be like, I mean, that is sort of, I feel like his literary heroes. That's kind of the vibe, like retiring in the islands.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, Ernest Hemingway, famously, if you know three things about him, he went to, the Keys and, and then decided to have the rest of his life there. So Shep could totally have a moment just like that. I mean, if anything, this would be the most organic reason to go to the Bahamas now that they have Sienna on the cast. So that might be the trip that they're all going to take. But I'm not going to let this one episode discourage me. I think Southern Charm is going to be rip-roaring the rest of the time. I think I was just sort of like a little deflated by the treatment of JT and everything this episode.
Yeah.
So cool.
We'll see. That's why I think the only thing we have to hold on to is that Craig is a liar. I think that's his only leg up. Is that JT can be like, he's literally lying.
My worry is, though, that Craig is still defiant. Like, to this day, in contemporary interviews, he's saying that he knows for a fact that he said it, and it's somewhere in the Bravo archives that JT said it. I know, seriously. I know. I'm like, I'm worried. I'm like, Craig, are you going to really metaphorically die on this hill over a lie to try to disparage JT when he didn't say that? Like, use other stuff against him. You don't need to pull eyes. But anyway, well, I'll wind this up. If you say, oh my gosh, it's Christmas Day and there's no new Turtle Time episode, I only got one on Christmas Eve. And I want one 2 days before. Well, there is a place where, unfortunately, maybe you got a gift card or you got $5 from your relative. They're like, don't spend it, all in one place. But I'm asking you, you can pay $5 for a month of the Patreon, the Turtle Time Patreon, and you get access to over 90 episodes that Amy and I have done recapping Vanderpump Rules from the very beginning. And I'm going to say this is the headline of this segment. We just started season 6 of Vanderpump Rules, which is farther than I know Amy and I ever thought we were going to be in Vanderpump Rules. And it's shocking to be in this era of Vanderpump Rules. So I think the Patreon is going to be hitting a stride. So if you wanted to get more Turtle Time, that is the perfect place on the Turtle Time Patreon.
Totally. It only took us just under 2 years to get to season 6, but we are chugging along and the show is better than ever.
Yep. It was perfect timing for us to get to season 6 for sure. Anything else you want to say as we close out this Christmas Eve episode and we say good night, and then everybody will be waking up on Christmas Day if they celebrate Christmas?
Yes, just happy holidays. We cherish you every day, and we might have to see you again in 2025.
Yes, exactly. And I'm hoping, I've been in sort of a Scrooge-like mood on Christmas Eve, so I'm hoping that I get visited by 3 ghosts that make me cherish Christmas Day tonight. So I hope I get haunted by 3 ghosts.
I'm hearing chains right now.
Jacob Marley? All right. Okay, good night, Little Turtle Cuties and Villa Rosa VIPs. We'll see you back at some point in the future.
Bye.